Oh, this is awkward.
Hello, YouTube. Is Mike back at it again?
What's up, dude?
I'm doing good.
How we doing?
We can debrief on the run.
It's good to see you.
Debrief on the run. We can message test.
Well, it's good to see you, man.
Good to
Welcome
see you.
back.
Thank you.
We'll figure out what happened.
Missed you, YouTube.
First time putting trail shoes on in 5 weeks. Been doing a lot of rehabbing with my ankle, uphill on the treadmill, bit more easier running on the road than for the past week and a half or so. Just starting to get back into it, but this will be first trail run. Came out here to Antelope Island to just see how I feel. Pretty untechnical trails for maybe an hour and a half or so. Kind of a good place to just come have some quiet time and sort of focus in on how I'm feeling. Such a pure trail running destination, especially when the weather's like this, the views are like this. Not where I come from mountain running, but for just some really, really nice and I'd say uniquely scenic trails. There's really not much like this in the world that I know of. There's a nice little group of buffalo hanging out just above me on this ridge. Show me another place where you can run with buffalo herds roaming around you and have views like this. I'm telling you, there's not much like it. Going up One Tree Hill, so called. At least that's what the Strava segment is called. Presumably for this tree right here. So this will be right about 11 and a half miles, hour 40 minutes or so. Longest run so far. And yeah, my ankle is definitely still really sore, really stiff. But overall, very grateful to be out here doing this today. My friends are flying home from Transgrancanaria right now. Should be landing any minute, and if I can time it right, I'll be able to give them a ride from the airport. Speaking of Transgrancanaria, if you've watched any of my other videos, you know that I had a pretty heated, often extremely personal rivalry going on with Finn and Leah. And then of course I had to bail because of my ankle, and you might have seen where Finn ended up not finishing the race with a DNF around 50 miles or so into it. You may be wondering if I'm going to start talking shit. I've got plenty of shit talk ideas in my head, but other than a couple of text messages, I haven't actually talked with Finn yet, so I'll save it. But I will say, I was rooting really hard for him and really bummed to see him have a bad day. I've been there myself. I've had tons of races, many of which I traveled for, which resulted either in DNFs or really bad days, which was the case when I ran Transgrancanaria in 2022 myself. Every DNF, every bad race has its own story, so I'll look forward to hearing his in more detail. before I start my shit talk. I will say, better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all, right? Oh, this is awkward.
Hello, YouTube. Is Mike back at it again?
What's up, dude?
I'm doing good.
How we doing?
Okay, we can debrief on the run.
good to see you.
Debrief on the run. We can message test.
Well, it's good to see you, man.
Good to see
Welcome
you.
back.
Thank you.
We'll figure out what happened.
Missed you, YouTube.
All right, so what's today? Tuesday? Tuesday. Finn just got back from Transgrancanaria
What's up, tubers?
yesterday. Dude, this is kind of awkward, isn't it?
I think when the dust is settled, I think one of the takeaways from this is I don't think I was going to have my best day unless you were there. I needed Mike in Gran Canaria, even if he was going to beat me.
Do you believe that?
To have my best day. There's a part of me that thinks that.
Can I take some ownership of your DNF?
Yes, I mean, I would definitely say that.
Today is trail run number 2 with the rehabbing ankle, joined by Finn and Leah.
Hello.
Finn's coming off a fresh DNF
I didn't know.
at TGC. What are you most surprised by? Caleb having a great day or you having an abysmal day?
I actually think this is a complicated question because I'm actually going to go with Caleb having an amazing day.
You're more surprised?
Yes, because I felt like coming into TGC, I had gotten to a point where even if I had a disappointing day, I still would have had an okay day. Like I still would have crossed the finish line and been proud of it. But I mean, Caleb is like a consistently great racer, but I did not think he was going to run an hour faster than last year's times. I now like see how he did it and was blown away impressed, but like to outclass John Albin the way that he did, and to see John at the finish line immediately after crossing, literally like bowing to Caleb. No, I could not have predicted that.
Wow, I think that's a good take. How about you, Leah?
Well, I was gonna ask you.
Maybe I should save my answer, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. So, my feelings going into it were that Caleb was going to have an exceptional day. I thought he'd break 13 hours. I didn't think he'd run 12:17. No offense, Caleb. And I thought Finn would have a good day. I think I made it public in the Discord that Finn would go out in 8th, micro fade to 10th. Finn was about maybe as high as like 13th at one point early on.
Yep.
And, you know, didn't expect a DNF, honestly.
Yeah.
I opened up this run saying how awkward this is right now. We were supposed to be maybe filming a jog this week like this, talking about the great days and celebrating like, you know, maybe my 8th place and your 9th place finish or something like that. So a little awkward to be making this video. But one more question did come to mind actually. What I would call famous Bane quote from The Dark Knight. He says, "I wondered what would break first, your spirit or your body?" And so I was wondering what would break first for you at TGC, your spirit or your body. What would you say broke first?
Gosh, I think my body broke. I said this in my Strava recap. This was the first time I've ever I have DNF before, but this was the first DNF I had where I did so because I thought I was going to be a liability to the organization. Like they were going to find me like halfway between Tute and the finish, like sprawled on the side of the course.
We're a few days removed, and I know with the DNF, sometimes your feelings can change a few days later. Do you feel like you could have finished looking back, or are you like content with the decision that you made?
This is actually a huge point of contention between me and Jules. So Jules and I have had many conversations since the race. She's convinced that I could have finished. I'm convinced that I couldn't have. And I think we genuinely both believe our views. You know, I think Jules was prepared. Like she's like, I would have, if it had taken you the full cutoff, I would have stayed. And I'm like, oh man.
We had a guest surprise run-in experience on the trail here with Aubrey. Are you more surprised that Caleb had an amazing day or that Finn had an abysmal day at Transgrancanaria?
That's an interesting question. I'm gonna give the unironic answer. I thought about trying to say something funny. I'm more surprised that Finn didn't put it together. No offense.
Offense taken, but no offense.
Finn had an amazing training block. He worked hard, and I think had I seen under the hood of what it was like in the Canary Islands with the sicknesses, my answer would have been different. But I had high hopes. Still has a positive attitude.
That's right.
I definitely felt the inkling like 12 hours after to still love the sport and want to do a bunch of races, but the desire for this one hasn't come back yet.
Okay, Mike's race there in 2022. So Mike wanted and very much was dropping out of the race where you dropped out of the race this year. And he tried to get a text message out to Jimmy to let him know that he was dropping out. And he got a message back in Spanish from the service provider that said, like, your message cannot be delivered. So therefore, Mike kind of had no other option. He tried to get a ride, etc., etc. But
I actually had a ride arranged.
But he was in theory left with no other option but to continue on, which meant he pretty much walked from like what, mile 50 to the finish. So my question is, did having a crew out there almost make it easier in some ways to give in to the DNF feelings versus kind of having this be a little bit more of a solo endeavor?
Yeah, I think there's such a fine line. I think that having a crew is almost equal parts asset and liability. I think if you're having a good day or you're at a point where you could be convinced to get the best out of yourself, asset. But I also think if you're in a dark place and you can't really be negotiated with, super liability, because at some point they're just gonna break.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I have been in environments where I had no choice, but like the only way out was through, like the 100-mile wilderness in Maine. I have been 40 miles into that, almost feeling the same things as what I felt at Transgrancanaria, and having this like realization that, wow, I am truly alone, and the only way I am ending this misery is getting to the finish line. Like, that is the next place a car will see me. So I felt so bad, like hydration wise, that like if I had, like, it would have been a challenge to break the course limit, they would, if you want to call it.
Yeah, the cutoff.
I was chasing cutoff. I think I would have been chasing cutoffs in a really interesting way. So maybe that would have made for a good film.
Definitely would have. So my intention for this run was literally just like a minute or two, a quick couple jokes with Finn about the race, but it's turned into what this might just end up being basically a full YouTube video. But you had another question, Finn.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of people that sub to the channel obviously because they want to follow your journey, but then this Rivalry thing happened and it's kind of captured a lot of imagination, and you know, like any good television or YouTube or whatever, people don't want to see it go away. So like, A, should we continue it? And B, like, what do we think is the next reasonable opportunity that maybe is like a good meeting spot for both of our strengths and weaknesses?
I love this question. I actually was on one of my meager ankle rehabbing neighborhood runs the other day while you were in Spain still, and I kind of crossed paths with somebody and they go, "Excuse me," and I turn around and they're like, "Do you have a YouTube channel?" And so I asked him, like, "Oh yeah, like, how'd you find it or whatever?" And he said, well, he followed Finn and then, you know, found me as a result of following Finn. So thanks for the pump. So in that sense, yeah, having a rivalry is great. I think having a rivalry is a very good thing. I loved it. It kept us both, I think, accountable and inspired. It's a huge bummer that it has, that episode 1, I would say, of our rivalry ended this way.
Yes.
But I do think it's
season one.
Yeah, maybe it's season 1. A series of unfortunate events, right?
We're also both about so it just heightens the like factors that are working for and against us.
Yeah, and so yeah, maybe finding that rematch especially in light of that news.
Oh shoot, I didn't mean to pull.
That's okay. I mean, I can choose when that gets published. If
Finish that up.
but especially,
we're just recording, not real time.
yeah,
No, we're not live.
this isn't live. But
That'd be so funny if it were.
you know, it'd be awesome if we could both be like, oh yeah, we're both gonna race again in the next like 2 months or something. Like, we're both healthy. It works with the schedules. I think having this rivalry is, I think it's healthy for both of us.
Let me ask this. This isn't a question. I want you to weigh. Imagine a scenario where we are both on the start line of Cocodona and we get 3 days of racing in a row to watch this rivalry unfold. How cool would that be? And what are you thinking about like there? Like, what are the pros and cons of you hopping into Cocodona?
Would it be that enticing if I was just like, if I was like 20, 30 miles ahead of you though for 3 straight days? Like,
Dude, you can close 20 or 30 miles in a 200. Like, that is nothing. That's like 2 miles in 100.
fair enough. So yeah, maybe Cocodona with you this year or next. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Where do you stand on the, yeah, how do you view the value of our rivalry?
All right, pros and cons of the rivalry for my own welfare. I think the first thing for me is a massive pro, and it's that it turns out I really needed external motivation to hold myself accountable to the work. Like, it's not the first time I've had a coach who's written really good training, but I needed that extra oomph or just like fire lit to get out the door. And so because of Mike, this is the first block I've ever done where I think I've done more than 3 weekly workouts in a row.
Wow.
And I think I did every one the entire block.
Wow.
Same thing on the long run front. I had never been that consistent. And so, yeah, I mean, I have a ton of issues to work out on the racing front. Like,
I'll say.
Totally. but I mean, it remains to be seen. Can I continue to replicate the boring hard work in training without Mike? I don't know. So I'm a huge advocate for it. Negatives? I don't really see any. Again, I'm also a media person, so this content is just so novel and entertaining. I love it for that reason too. Like, even if I'm on the losing end, I still win. So, no cons. I guess one con is there's definitely a huge mismatch in gift of gab. So, you know, I have to go to like a wordsmithing school or something to work on my shit talk. So I guess I further get put on blast there, but
Yeah, I mean, I can still spin you however I want
exactly.
on when I'm making the video.
Exactly. If you're still watching the video at this point, which I know you are, because you're hearing me right now, the question that I have for the comment section is, should our next rivalry location take place at Cocodona? Why or why not? And if not Cocodona, where do you think it should be and why? Let us know in the comments.
That's a great question. Lala, do you have any thoughts on where it should be?
I've got like complex feelings on it. So it depends if I want you to win or not. If I want you to win,
Name an example of something I wouldn't win.
well, I think Finn would probably beat you in like Lake Sonoma right now. Like, I think if Finn were to go do Lake Sonoma or like Gorge, he might have you, Mike. In like, I think he's like 7 hours, 8 hours is his forte. I think yours is like, I would never take Finn at like UTMB over you. Yeah, I think besides Caleb, Finn is the king of douche grade. So put Finn on the course with a ton of douche grade and a ton of cruisy downhills, and he might have you, Mike.
King Douche Melanson.
Douche canoe. Like, again, this would have to be like 2 or 3 years down the road. But I think UTMB would be like, okay, imagine like the series is tied like 2-2 and like the decisive game 5 is UTMB.
Oh, it has to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what's interesting, the stats are interesting. Like, Mike you definitely have more wins. Like, does Finn have
I've never beat Mike.
any?
I don't know if have we ever raced?
We actually have. Dude, I just found this out a week ago. Because we raced at the 2019 Spigo 50K.
Oh.
And I don't ever remember seeing you. So you must have been way out front and then faded to me.
Did you guys finish
But-
at 2 spots?
No, we finished 17-18.
What?
What?
I finished in 6:40 and you finished in 6:39.
What?
This
And I
is not
never-
talked about.
And I never saw you the entire day.
I didn't even realize that.
So Mike is technically up in the series.
That's true.
Nice. Mark it. That reminded me though. During this rivalry, Leah and I had a conversation at home one day because we were curious what mine and Finn's records against Leah in races are.
Oh God.
We thought that might be an interesting way to.
Yeah.
My own
Finn's at a disadvantage because Mike and I do a lot of the same races. So I beat Mike twice.
I think I was 12-1-1 against you.
Yeah. Finn, I think I beat you every.
twice.
Yeah, I think it was. I think Finn was. Was 0 for 2
Yeah.
against
Yeah.
you.
I'm gonna defend myself here. I don't think I ever could have beaten you at Canyons, but I do think I should have won at Squaw.
Yeah, you should have. You were like,
I
in bad
had the
shape.
worst blow up, and I was feeling so good.
So yeah, Finn is 0-2 against Leah, and I'm 12-1-1. We had one handhold
yeah.
tie. So, you know, if you use that how you will to sort of assess how our rivalry at
Yeah.
TGC might have
I
gone.
had to hold your hand to get you to the finish line.
All right.